صلوا على النبي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم، أنت رب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر عظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو شهر الذي فرضت صيامه عليه، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك، من علي بفكاك رقبة من النار في من تمن عليه، وأدخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عام هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لتلك الذنوب العظام فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده الباسط بالجود يده الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة وغناك عنه قديم وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وصفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على قبيح عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطأ وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهل عليك ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك عليه. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك كأن لي التطول عليك. فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي وتفضلي علي بجودك وكرمك فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني. وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد السائل ولا يخيب آمل. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيد الشباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حجتك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائما. اللهم صل على ولي أميرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة وتعز بها الإسلام وأهلا، وتذل بها النفاق وأهلا، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وعزز به ذلتنا، واغن به عائلنا، وقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجه به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وعن على ذلك بفتح منك تعجل، وبضر تكشف، ونصر تعز، وسلطان حق تظهر، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فأدخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن ولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فالبسنا، وليلة القدر، وحج بيتك الحرام، وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا. وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا. وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار والسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت، بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك، ولا تستبدل به بغيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان، أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه، ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا ذا الذي كان قبل كل شيء ثم خلق كل شيء ثم يبقى ويفنى كل شيء، يا ذا الذي ليس كمثله شيء، يا ذا الذي ليس في السماوات العلى ولا في الأرضين السفلى ولا فوقهن ولا تحتهن ولا بينهن إله يعبد غيره، لك الحمد حمدا لا يقوى على إحصائه إلا أنت. وصل على محمد وآل محمد صلاة لا يقوى على إحصائها إلا أنت. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك، ولاذ الفقراء بجنابك، ووقفت سفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك وكرمك، يرجون الجواز إلى ساحة رحمتك ونعمتك. إلهي إن كنت لا تغفر في هذا الشهر الشريف إلا لمن أخلص لك في صيامه وقيامه، فمن للمذنب المقصر إذا غرق في بحر ذنوبه وآثامه. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للعاصين، وإن كنت لا تقبل إلا من العاملين فمن للمقصرين. إلهي ربح الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجا المخلصون ونحن عبيدك المذنبون فارحمنا برحمتك واعتقنا من النار بعفوك يا كريم يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم اغن كل فقير. اللهم اشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكس كل عريان. اللهم اقض دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله.
Sayyid Shabir, my respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, some of these programs this first week have gone pretty well. I do want to just acknowledge everyone who helps out each and every day. A lot of the volunteers work all day, come here and work hard, and it's a beautiful thing to see everybody come together, especially during iftar time, to set everything up and as well to put everything away and clean all the tables. So allow Tilawat for all the volunteers and each of you who help out. Just a few announcements, just go through 2 quick slides and then some things I want to share with all of you. So the first slide, please. So just some housekeeping. As I said in my last address a few weeks ago, I think we've gotten comfortable here. So some of the things that we complained about early on when we first came to this church, we've gotten accustomed to, and I mentioned during the Amal for 15 Shaban, nobody wanted to be in the gym, we all wanted to be upstairs. So sometimes when we go through change, it takes a while to adapt. But we're getting a little too used to this place, and I just want to remind people that we share this building with our host. We are still the guests here. So a lot of times right now, especially with Easter going on, there's going to be times during this month where we are sharing this building with the hosts. They have their programs, and we need to be mindful of that. So you'll see meetings in the conference room. You saw people this evening, they were leaving a program that was held upstairs in one of the other rooms here. Good Friday's coming up where they'll be upstairs, right? And we'll be downstairs, and we can't come upstairs until they leave at 8:30. So I'll announce these things, but be mindful. We're hanging out in the hallways. We're congregated by the doors. We need to be mindful of that. Please stay in the gym. When it's time to come upstairs, come upstairs. The other thing that I'm seeing as well is that we're also smoking where we're not supposed to be smoking. Okay, there's a designated area by the trash receptacles. Please go out there to smoke. I know some people are thinking we're not going to see you out in the parking lot. Everything here is seen. All right, there are cameras, there are things that are catching these things. So please, brothers and sisters, We have a ways to go to be in this church. Like I said, we've been almost kicked out of here 6 times. I've shown you the emails, things that have happened. I can't continue to fight the fight. It's getting harder and harder with each incident that happens. So I'm asking all of you to please help. And I also cannot be running around. I'm getting older. All right? It's getting very tiring for me to run around. I'm not a spring chicken no more. All right? So please, I'm going to ask for your help. If you see something that is not in alignment with what I'm asking for here, I'm asking each of you to be those eyes and the voice to guide people on doing the right thing, please. All right? Also, in this hall, I've been told that people are coming in here with coffee and drinks. I think we talked about it before. It's Ramzan. They understand that we are fasting. The only thing that's allowed to be brought into this hall here is water. Okay, please don't bring your chai cups. Don't bring Dunkin' or anything else. All right? By the way, if you do get Dunkin', remember, medium, cream, too splendid for me, please. All right? But we got to drink it in the gym. Okay? And I'll join you. We can talk about things. All right? So remember, please make sure you're not bringing that in here. I know some of us like to take the food takeaway, the things that are left over. As you take those, please take them to your car. Don't bring them into this room. Okay? And as well, please don't touch the books, the Bibles, and cards that are behind the pews here. Okay? It's not our property. Let's not touch those. We have another incident. Someone with crayon wrote in the Bible. All right? That's not good. All right? This was just a couple of days ago. It was brought to my attention. All right? Brothers and sisters, please, we're better than that. We're Shia of Ali. Come on. All right? I don't need to keep talking about these things with you. All right? Now, I don't know who did it, but we're going to find out. The last time I brought it up, people wrote in the cards. I want to acknowledge the people. They actually, when I said, come and, tell us who did it, they did come forward. They said, yes, we did it. I made them write an apology letter, and they did. Okay, so we're able to resolve that issue. Okay, but this is a little bit more serious. Would you want someone writing in our Quran? Anybody? Put your hand up. Okay, so please, brothers and sisters, I'm begging you, we got to be here for 2 more years. Okay, please. All right, next slide. All right. We'll talk about this in a little bit. So we still have some nights that are available for the Ramzan sponsorship. I thought I had a slide with that. Can you go to the next one, or is there nothing left? That's it? All right. So tonight I'll publish you about 7 nights left for the iftar sponsorships. All the tea date sponsorships are full. So loud salawat to everybody who wants sponsored teen dates. We have 7 nights available for iftar sponsorship. And brothers and sisters, I did put this out this year. It's important to know why the numbers are so high. All right, we worked pretty hard. We went to go look at a kitchen about 30 minutes away. And I tried to get the kitchen here to cook. There were a lot of requirements and restrictions. And like I said, we got to survive here for a couple more years. The risk was not worth the reward of cooking ourselves, right? That decision was made, consulted with quite a few people, and had to make that difficult decision. All these years when we've done the sponsorships, I've never not disclosed it, been always honest about this. $200-300 came back to the Jamaat that we were able to use to maintain the kitchen. Things broke. As well, it cycled back and allowed us to do other programs throughout the year. Right, this year, I did share this with everybody. If you saw it very clearly, where the expenses go. Every dollar that we are charging for the sponsorship, every dollar goes into the cost. Nothing, not a penny comes back to the Jamaat. Right? They are extra costs. So if you compare to other Jamaats, so I hear so-and-so does this, so-and-so does that. So-and-so also charges more than us. But when I bring that up, there are more people. Right? So you get their excuses, but I can't make the reasons why we charge what we charge. Right? Every Jamaat runs its own economy and has its own cycle and does things their way. Our way is right here. Right? We have to pay an extra $4,000 a month in rent for using this place in Ramzan. You can see how we use it. We use this room, we use the gym, we use worship center, we use 108, we're using that classroom, we're using this parlor. We use this place extensively in the month of Ramzan, and with that comes extra cost above and beyond the rest of the year. In addition to that $4,000 that we pay for this month, we have to pay our normal rent this month too, right? Additionally, we have to pay their staff. Okay, their staff has to be here. Again, because we weren't the best of who we could be early on, that required them to keep staff present to clean up after us after we left and check everything. Right? So in the month of Ramzan, they have to stay extra hours till we leave, they stay, and we have to cover those costs for that staff, in addition to the people that we are hiring to wash the dishes, mop the floor, and clean up after us in the gym and the kitchen. That's a cost. We also didn't have to worry about delivery. We have to get food delivered here every day. That's a cost that's built in here as well. So again, not a penny comes back to the Jamaat. So what does that mean for the rest of the year for us in our programming? The Lawajim, your membership, which we collect between 36 and 40,000 a year, goes to pay the rent the rest of the year, goes to pay for the insurance, goes to pay for the accountant, and other small things. So everything we collect for the Lawajim, I've explained this before, goes into just running the organization. There is no money for programs to bring in speakers, right? There is no money to do extra things, right? So oftentimes I get, hey, can we get a tea cart? No, we can't afford $1,200 for a tea cart. We have to raise money for that if we want it, right? Or we want to do this program. Great, let's do it. What's the cost? What's the cost for? Food, sorry. We have to raise money for that, okay? Even the speakers. We're blessed that we have Zakir Nisar. We have a brother in Harrisburg. We have two scholars, Maulana Sakawat and his son, who are close by. Outside of that, brothers and sisters, to bring another scholar here, we have to pay for a plane ticket, a hotel, hadiyah, and other expenses, all right? So there is no funding for that unless we collect the funds for that. Okay? The only month where we raise the largest amount of funds, and I can show you the money that comes in, all right? We have an electronic thing where people send money. 365 days, I can tell you right now, about 90% of those days, no donations today, no donations today, no donations today, all right? So this is the constant battle. You don't see me coming up here asking much. It's not my nature to come up and have to constantly add. I did never, from day one, I said I did not like the beggar model with the cup. And I've tried not to do that. I've come up with these types of programs so we didn't have to continuously ask. But when I do ask, for example, for Rajab Shaban, the cost for that was around $4,000. What did we collect in donations? Maybe 800. So where does the money come from, brothers and sisters? Jamaat has money, yes. But what is that money allocated to? Do you know? People who spread these rumors don't have the facts. And I'm going to start spreading this. I'm going to start basically spreading the gospel. I'm going to start talking. Because I need to combat this stuff that goes on here from people who are not the experts. I need to share this. And it's my fault. I have to be open with you like I was here. All right? So this month, I have here that we have a target to raise $15,000. That $15,000 will be used, right? And I need to see what's available. So again, you can call a speaker the week before and say, hey, you free this weekend? Can you fly to Allentown? It doesn't work that way. We got to make these bookings 4, 5, 6 months and longer in advance. So the money that's raised this month will allow us to start making those bookings into the future, right? So again, we hear a lot of complaints, why this speaker, why that speaker? Sometimes that's all we can get. But again, we are lucky. I grew up with Zakir Nisar and Mahroom Akbar Bhai. We were lucky to have them here, right? For those of us who grew up with that, right? And we'll continue to use our local speakers. But see, and I'm going to have a conversation about this another day. These speakers give their life to this cause, right? I'm not going to get into detail, but again, a lot of complaints about speakers. I'm going to touch on that another day. But again, brothers and sisters, please, these blessings that are given to this Jamaat to be able to run these programs, to provide these iftars, are the blessings that you're given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give back, right? It's like rain. Rain falls on the ground. That rain grows the crops. The water evaporates, goes back into the sky, and more rain comes. And the cycle repeats, right? Take a moment, right? And reflect on your blessings, everything that you're given. Cars, the houses, all that has risen. From the time I grew up in this community back in 1977, I don't know when we came. My mom's usually going to have to remind me. I remember when I came. I've been here a long time, right? But from the time that we came, we all lived on one side of town. We've all moved to this side of town. This is a nicer part of town, right? We've all grown, but we try to keep what we get here at the mosque. When we raise it, we get noise. Mosque is always last, right? Brothers and sisters, these blessings that we're given are given to us to disperse. Some people build mosques, others just give false pledges that never materialize, all right? Let's not be those people, all right? Give, and I promise it comes back to you. I've experienced it myself. whether through volunteering, through giving, it all comes back, right? Let's use this month of Ramadan to reflect on that and give, right? It only benefits our community, right? And that's how we grow, right? I know I've taken up too much time. I'll be spreading more of this gospel coming up. There'll be a day I'm going to actually use a larger time to share with you. But I just want to touch on one thing, right? That mosque is coming up. And I hear this a lot. I want to hit this on tonight because we're going to have very, very heart-to-heart conversations. Before we took the step to build that mosque, we share with you all the information, including what it's going to cost to run that mosque, right? I hear complaints. Well, I didn't come to that meeting, so I don't agree with you. If you didn't come to the meeting, whose fault is that? Information was shared. That room was packed. You were all there, right? We all stood there, and 4 times, you wanted to recite salawat, and 4 times I said, no, are you sure? You sure you want to move on with this? And you all said yes. And you recited the salawat, and we moved on. And I shared what this thing was going to cost, right? And none of you flinched. It was 4 times more to run this new mosque than was our old mosque. And I showed you how we were going to do it. And I'm going to share with you, I'm going to remind you, there's a date coming up, I'll announce it soon, where we're going to talk about this. But we need to be building for that and being ready for that. So if we're not hitting these goals, I'm concerned right now with this community, where we're going, right? My job is to get you there. And I promised I will get you there. I will stay on as long as you want me to stay on. But we got to work on this together, okay? If I'm not the right guy, choose somebody else, all right? But there is a plan, there is a vision, and I've shared with you part of how we're going to get there. Now I'm going to share the rest of that with you, all right? I'm willing to sacrifice my health. My wife knows I'm not well. I push myself to do this, all right? And I will continue to do so, but I need your help, all right? Let's close. Let's remember our marhumin with the Surah Fatiha. We'll continue our dialogue. Thank you.
Let's all recite 5 times I am Yujibu for all those who are in need of du'as here and all around the world. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. Let's all welcome Sayyid Karmani with a loud صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل. وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات صدق الله العلي العظيم. زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question, what is destiny? We've been discussing the concept of kamal and the pursuit of perfection, the pursuit of excellence in Islam as per the Quran, as per Islam, and how we are meant to live in this life and achieve the akhirah through this life. And in that journey, I want to discuss with you tonight a few elements that are fundamental. That is, how is the mosque of the future? How is the masjid of the future? How is the Imam Barga of the future? How is the Husseini of the future? No, how is the Islam of the future going to need to be? And how is it that that needs to be revived and not necessarily constructed? Number one. Number two, with respect to this is, what is destiny? Is everything decreed? Is there some middle path? Is everything free will? And what does that have to do with you and I in terms of our achievement in life? Is it against Islam for me to strive to succeed in my career, in my marriage, in my life as a husband, for someone as a mother, as a wife, as a family person? Is Islam with this or against this? And essentially, how is it that understanding these elements will teach us and give us an understanding of how we won't need to ask people to raise a dime for our community if we truly understand Islam? People will empty their wallets. How will that happen? That won't happen until you and I truly understand what Islam is and what needs to be built, inshallah. This is our agenda for this evening. Wherever you are, here in Allentown or across the globe, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I have to be crisp and succinct today. I have some friends from New York visiting as well, and I'm about to head over there as well. So I have to do this in a New York minute, if you will. So stay with me. Having said this, if you don't remember anything, there's a few principles by the end of this 15 days you remember, I hope. One is, there are how many sides to a coin? 3, okay. Heads, tails, and the edge. Ahsan. And there are 3 categories of knowledge. What you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know, then you know. Ahsan. At least you got your money's worth at this point in time. There's more to come, but allow me to explain. We as human beings, insan, Allah's creation, there's something unique about us, as far as we know right now. Human beings have the ability to think, not only think, we have the ability to do something, a fancy word called metacognition. You know metacognition? Have you heard of Meta, the company Facebook, it's the parent company of Facebook? I'm not marketing here for them, but what I'm saying is, we have this concept of metacognition, meaning I can think about what I'm thinking, and there's different categories. For example, I'm standing up here and I'm wearing a jacket and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if there's somebody in the audience thinking, does he know the Islamic laws of wearing leather in Islam or not? And then I'm thinking back in my mind, do they know that this may be synthetic? Or maybe it was produced in a Muslim country? And then there's a third category of someone saying that maybe he was produced in a Muslim country, or maybe he knows the ahkam, but that 4-year-old child or 5-year-old child in the audience doesn't know that. Does he know that? So these are the back and forth thoughts that may be happening, that nothing's been said. It's happening at a metacognition level. So similarly, when I see someone do something, I don't necessarily know why they did anything. And that's why it's important for me when I'm having a relationship with a friend, with a brother. That's why Islam said 70 benefits of the doubt. Because you don't know what's in that person's heart. I don't know what's in that person's heart. Maybe I genuinely forgot. Maybe I genuinely didn't know. Maybe there's some other element of the equation that I don't see. And that's what Islam wanted, that we recognize that if you and I can understand this, you don't think Allah can understand all the dimensions of the equation? Allah is Khaliq. So Allah knows the intricacies of the equation better than you and I. So know that things are not always black and white. There's a gray area, that Islam is the most practical and pragmatic. Allow me to explain. Islam says, for example, don't touch swine. Not only Islam, the Old Testament as well, as you know, and the Quran. Don't touch swine. But there's a circumstance where even that can become not haram for you. It can become wajib for you to eat. If your life's on the line. If your life's on the line, you have nothing else, the circumstance changes. Namaz. Typically, we're supposed to be in a state of khushu and khudu when we're in salah, when we're praying. But in Shahr Ramadan, ask our ulama, they say that, in Shahr Ramadan, your pace should be faster. Because that turba, that sajda starts looking like a kebab after some time. So Allah knew that. Allah knew how you're thinking. Allah created you. You don't think He knows that? He knows that. So it's important to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if my mother can know how I'm feeling and I've had a rough day, and I may be taking out my anger on her of something else, you know what I mentioned a couple of days ago, going home and kicking the dog, you had a rough day at work, you had a rough day and you take it on your family, you don't think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows? Allah knows before you got the thought of even thinking that. So now keeping this in mind, what is destiny? What is decree? What does it have to do with politics and the world in our world in this time? We need to understand that if we want these mosques, these masajid, these Husainiyas, everywhere I go, there's two fundamental issues. Number one, will there be anyone in the mosques in 10, 15 years? Number one. Number two, how are we going to run these places? Everyone's fundraising. It's important, no doubt. But I'll tell you one thing. Rasulullah, come with me in a moment. Rasulullah is making the first announcement inviting people to Islam. And he has something called Da'wat Zul Ashira. So, Da'wat's food is not new, huh? It's been going on for some time. Rasulullah even knew the psychology of people. So eventually he invites first, Wanzir Ashiratakal Aqrabin. Invite the near ones first. So he invites the near ones. First day, they all eat their fill. You know the story. And eventually, Rasulullah stands up to speak. They all, they sort of eat and they say, we got to go. They leave. Eventually, the likes of Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab and the likes. And 3 days this happens until Abu Talib comes forward and says, look, you're not leaving until my nephew speaks. Yes? Rasulullah, he didn't just invite them on a blanket statement. He said, I'm going to feed you guys. So, alhamdulillah, it's a sunnah of Rasulullah to feed people. Very good. But today in my world, fast forward to 2024, that was an incentive. And today, believe me, I'm the Imam of a masjid, alhamdulillah, through the blessings of Allah. We know that when there's food, especially good food, we have more attendance. It's everywhere. This is everywhere. But the point that I'm getting at here is this. Fundamentally, I may argue that the da'wat and the food and the biryani that Rasulullah was offering has changed today. The incentives have changed. I ask your kids, I ask my kids, I say, look, Dad, what's on the menu today? Alhamdulillah, we have the menus published, for every Jamaat around the world. There's publishing menus now. So I'll tell you, how do you get the most people in attendance? Simple. Have a 6-course meal. Look at a bunch of people. But is that quality? Is that quantity? Whatever it is. Again, stay with me here. I have a point to make. But if I ask your kids, they'll say, Dad, not in Ramadan, but outside of Ramadan, I can go to Saad. Pretty good. I'll go to Philly. Or I'll go to Dave's Hot Chicken. Or I'll go here. Or I'll go to the city and I'll get a halal X, Y, and Z. So that doesn't hold it for them anymore. So ask yourself, what do people want today? So they'll say, I want my kids to get into UPenn and Wharton and Dartmouth and Princeton and Harvard. Excellent. Did Islam have a problem with that? No. You ask people, they'll say, okay, I want my kids to be established financially. I want them to have a good career. Okay. I want them to have a good marriage. I want them to marry a good person. I want them to be a good person. I want them to know the before, during, and after of a marriage to improve their... So what you're saying is, people want a good quality of life. If you want a good quality of life, then you should go to Scandinavia. It will get a better quality of life than America. But the point being, I'm jokes aside, the point that I'm getting at here is, you won't have to ask people for fundraising, and everywhere, if you tell people, use this platform, the masjid, the Imam Bargah, the Husainiya, to achieve your goals in life. We have flipped it. We have the cart before the horse. We have a dynamic of, what it's called a zero-sum game. For those of you who study game theory, for those of you who study economics, there's something called zero-sum in business and in strategy. Zero-sum means one person wins, one person loses. And there's a zero-sum game going on in the world right now, and the zero-sum game is, it's mosque versus life. And I'm telling you, life is winning, mosque is losing. So what's the solution? Don't make 2 lives. Have 1 life. That's what Islam wanted. And you'll get this and that. But the reality of the matter is, I don't have any obligations, I don't have any birthday parties, I don't have any school, work, anything else. Okay, then I can make it to the mosque. The reality is, this was supposed to be that platform that gives you strength to go into the battlefield of life and achieve. So now, keeping this in mind, come with me in a moment in time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm going to get to this basis, there's a moment that we're in the middle of a desert. Come with me on this journey. We're in the middle of a desert, in a barren desert, no witnesses, There's no news, there's no journalism. In the middle of this desert is a mother with a child, a newborn child in her hands. This mother is holding this child in her hands, and the child is rubbing its lips out of thirst. This mother has no one to support her. She's in the middle of a barren desert. She takes this child and notices that her child is in need of water. She puts this child down in the middle of a desert. And she then begins to run between two hills, one called Safa, one called Marwa. And she runs 1 time, and 2 times, and 3 times, and 4, up until the point that she gets up to 6 or 7 times, and then a spring comes out called Zamzam. My question, Ya Allah, you knew there was a mother in a barren desert with a child who is in thirst. Why did you make her run between Safa and Marwa? Why did you make her run 7 times? And why are millions of people doing this every year after her? Allah would perhaps respond that, didn't I tell you in the Quran over and over again? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who believe and do good actions. Your job, my job, is to do whatever is in our ability. The rest is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah responds to your response. Allah responds to your effort, to my effort. Allow me to explain. This is dense philosophically, but it solves a lot of our problems. You know that moment in time where someone asked the Imams, this came during the time of Rasulullah, Imam Ali, also, and during the time of the 6th Imam, that they said, look, what is it? Is everything predestined or is everything free will? So Imam says, lift one leg. So he lifts one leg. He says, look, now lift the other leg while one is up. He says, I can't, I'll fall. He said, it's like this. But there's another one that I want to mention. This is attributed to Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now, stay with me here. And you'll really understand this, and this will really come home if I'm able to explain this in the next few moments. Look. This philosophy that we've gotten, not my words, not my words. Stay with me here. You have to look at, remember I talked about the drift yesterday, the drift of society? You know, the ocean and the current of the ocean? Stay with me here. If you go to other parts of the world, so I've been to Silicon Valley, I've lectured there, I've lectured in Seattle, I've lectured in Florida and, here in New York, and every society has a drift. So I'll give you an example, real example. So I went to Seattle and I was lecturing there. I was checking in to get my rental car at the rental car agency. And so, we're making small talk. And when I'm making small talk, I'm saying like, they're asking where I came from. I said, I came from Florida. The person behind the counter said, I asked them, where did you come from or move from? And they said, move from LA. So I said, what was the biggest adjustment factor? Like, what did you have to adjust for when you moved from LA to Seattle? They said, the time. Time was, I said, what do you mean? He said, time is way slower here than it is in LA. So I said, what is it like for a New Yorker in Seattle? What will they do? They'll probably lose their head. And so time and pace matters. When you go to Silicon Valley, I have friends there. You must have friends there as well. Everyone has their job or their career, or they have one foot in a startup. Steve Jobs didn't come out of nowhere. There was a drift in society to do startups in that environment. There were engineers there. It's called the beehive effect. So there's a drift in society in your environment. And what you say, eventually, if you repeat something enough, people start believing it. So for example, I'm here to tell you that the face of Islam globally has changed in the last 75 years. Don't take my words for it. There's a book called On Saudi Arabia by Karen Elliott House. Read the book. And she said something very interesting. There's a kingdom there in Saudi Arabia. And, whatever your political views, I'm just referencing the book here. And so, there's no concept of kingdoms in Islam. I told you this the other night. Khilafat wa mulukiyat. Islam is egalitarian in nature. So it's fair in nature. It's more democratic, so to speak. There's a leader such as the Imam or the Prophet, and the people have their rights, right? But what had happened, how did there become a kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the kingdom of XY? So she said something interesting. She said there was, before this kingdom, what was happening was, Karen Elliott House says in her book, she said what was happening was there were tribes, and tribes would fight amongst each other. And whatever tribe came into power, they would stay in power, only until the next tribe overcame them. So she said there was a tribe that came from Najd that came into power, and they came into power, and they said, we're in power now, but how do we stay in power? And they said, we need an Islamic doctrine to legitimize us staying in power. And so they said there was one doctrine, which was the Salafi Wahhabi doctrine, which said to revolt against the ruler is kufr, is haram. So because of that one ruling, the entire Islam was shifted to this. Now stay with me here. Taqdeer, destiny. What is destined and what is not? Stay with me here. Imam Ali alayhi salam is in a situation where he is standing, or sitting I should say, under the shadow and the grace, a shadow of a wall. Imam Ali is sitting under the shade of a wall in Kufa. When he's sitting there, or in Medina, he's sitting under the shade of the wall. He notices that the wall is not that stable. It's a bit weak. The mud, there's cracks. And he notices, for example, a little bit of the mud or cement or whatever the fixtures were, it began to crumble and come. As soon as he saw this and noticed that this wall is not that stable, Imam Ali alayhi salam gets up and he goes across the way away from the wall. The people who are sitting there with Imam Ali nearby, they said, Ya Ali, you are fleeing from the taqdeer of Allah? You are fleeing from the destiny of Allah? Meaning that this is the destiny of God. If the wall was meant to fall, it will fall. Why are you moving away from it? Allahu Akbar. 1,000 lives on Ali ibn Abi Talib. Babi Madinatul Ilm. Imam Ali says, in response, he says, I am fleeing from the taqdeer of Allah towards the taqdeer of Allah. Allahu Akbar. They said, what? The ulama explained this. What does it mean to go from the taqdeer of Allah to the taqdeer of Allah? He said, have you ever heard that quote from Henry Ford that's attributed to him? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. He says, the ulama explained this. They say, what does the Amir al-Mu'mineen say that when he saw this signs, he got up and he moved and he's going from the taqdeer of Allah to the taqdeer of Allah? He said, the ulama say it's congruent with your knowledge. Somebody else, somebody who's not Amir al-Mu'mineen, will see all the signs and they'll just sit remaining there. But someone of knowledge knows that these signs are indicating that this wall is about to break. I should move. My intellect demands me to move. So the person who sits there and takes it, that's his taqdeer, because his intellect only took him to that point. But for the follower of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you and I are supposed to move because we're supposed to be ahead of the curve. So now come with me. How does that apply to you and I? You say and I say, death comes when death comes. But I spend my whole life smoking. I spend my whole life eating bad. I don't move. I don't sleep. I don't follow anything that I should be following medically. And I say, death came when it came. This is what Islam was saying. This concept was embedded to keep the populace stagnant. That's what was mentioned in the book. The Islam that you and I has become very lethargic. It's become very lazy. It's become very become very induced with inertia. That's not true Islam. The true Islam is the Islam of Haydar al-Qarar. That's the true Islam. The true Islam is the Islam of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So what does it mean? So you may say, well, someone did everything right and they still died. Well, then you can say, Ya Allah, I did whatever was in my ability. I'll give you an example. I went to Mumbai, I went to India a couple of years ago, and I went to Bombay. In Bombay, I went to Dongri. Some of you may have, where a lot of the history of the Khoja Jamaatis and many other Jamaats are based there. And so they showed me, there was a guy by the name of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. They call him Qaid-e-Azam in Pakistan. And he was handpicked by Iqbal for this movement of Pakistan. Anyways, having said that, Iqbal knew something. Now, Jinnah was someone who was Ismaili Khoja and he became Ithna Ashari Khoja. There are documents on this. Why am I mentioning this to you? He was a lawyer, a barrister in London, in the UK, before this. He had a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce. And again, Imran Khan is the one who's saying this. In the 1940s and 30s in England, he had everything made. He didn't need to do what he was doing. So they asked him, why are you leaving everything that everyone's striving for in life in the United Kingdom? You're leaving that to go back to India in order to establish this new state. And they asked him why. And he says, the reason I'm doing this, maybe it'll fail, maybe people are saying all sorts of things. He said, well, I just want to be able to look at God on the day of judgment and say, and he say to me, God say to me, well done, Mr. Jinnah, you tried your best. That is this idea that in our system is what we strive for. So now keep this in mind. When it comes to striving, your job, my job is to strive within the best of our ability. So now come back to this. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I'm going for the taqdeer of Allah, to the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is correlated with your level of knowledge. That is correlated with your level of understanding. That is correlated with your level of ma'rifah. So now, what are you struggling for? What am I struggling for? And then you will understand all the difficulties that are happening in the world. Allah may want you and I to stand up to do something about it. But that doesn't happen until we wake up and we realize. And that's where I want to bring the poetry of Iqbal forefront again. Iqbal says a line, and I'll try to translate. It's amazing to me that people are following in Urdu. Some people know Urdu. Some people it's their fourth or fifth language. Impressive. So he says, Tere darya mein tufan kyun nahi hai? Allah Akbar. You know, if you understand what does Shariat mean in Islam, you'll get more appreciation of this. Shariat comes from which is a tributary. A tributary is a small, thin river that connects to a bigger body of water. And so the idea within Islam of Sharia is, it's that thing that connects me to the divine. So if you understand that and you understand Khudi, which I've been discussing a couple of nights ago, which comes from verse of Surah Hashr, your power comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Proof, Imam Ali is breaking barley bread after Khaybar. They said, Ya Ali, you lifted Khaybar, you are the strongest warrior. And you're struggling to break barley bread, how? And he said, I did not lift the gate of Khaybar with my physical strength. No. I lifted it with the strength of my spirit. So now, Amir al-Mu'mineen had that spirit. When you go to work, when you go to school, when you go to anything in life, do you remember Rasulullah? Do you remember Imam Ali? Do you remember Imam Hussein? Imam Hussein gave everything on the battles of Karbala, on the plains of Karbala, didn't he? So maybe you're not asked to give blood. Maybe I'm not asked to give blood. And I'm not saying that at all. Maybe you're asked to maybe work an extra hour a day through the barakah of Ahlul Bayt and maybe contribute to the community, the society, or not even the community. Maybe somebody in the community like the Ahlul Bayt did in the middle of the night feeding poor people. Maybe that's your trial. I don't know. There must be something. So now, taqdeer is whatever you have in your ability, you struggle to the limit of your capacity. Then you leave it to Allah. And then what happens? You can say, Ya Allah, I did what I could. You take care of the rest. What did Imam Hussein say at the end of, in the plains of Karbala, which I mentioned a couple of nights ago? Ilahi qad wafayta, ufu bihdik. So now, Tere darya mein tufan kyun nahi hai? Khudi teri musalma kyun nahi hai? Oh. So why isn't there a storm in your river? Why is your river of life, your river of Iman, why is it stagnant? Why is it just still? Why isn't there a hurricane? Why isn't there a storm? Why isn't there some movement in there? Why is there lethargy? Was there lethargy in Amir al-Mu'mineen? No. Was there lethargy in Rasulullah? No. Was there lethargy in any of the A'immah? No. They were struggling in the battlefields of life, either through going through the battlefield, either through their intellect, Imam al-Sadiq in the University of Imam al-Sadiq, or through other aspects of the equation. Tere darya mein tufan kyun nahi hai? Khudi teri musalma kyun nahi hai? Abas. Abas means pointless, useless. Abas hai, shikwa taqdeer yazdan, tu khud taqdeer yazdan kyun nahi hai? Allahu Akbar. He says that you are complaining about the taqdeer and the destiny of God. Why aren't you yourself the destiny of God? Meaning Allah would say that I gave you so much ability. I gave you this brain, which no other creation has. I gave you limbs. I gave you the ability to speak. I gave you everything. And yet you're complaining that I didn't give you? And you're complaining this was just decreed? This was just destiny? So now comes the kicker about our communities. If you want something, let's be frank. If you read the history of other religions across the globe, things have happened. And they're happening in front of our eyes to our community, right? People have differences of opinion. People have different views. And eventually what happens is, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, and then we go our own ways. I start my own center, you start your own center. And what ends up happening is we dilute the whole pool. What may need to happen in the future of our communities is we have everyone, and we have halaqats, the same way it was with Rasulullah, of different discussions under one roof. So then we don't lose people. Because I want to talk about Islam and science. Maybe someone else has no interest in that. Maybe I want to talk about Islam and economics. Maybe someone else doesn't have an interest in that. But otherwise, If you want to understand this, and I gave this example in the Jummah khutbah for those of you who are there, look for opportunities in your own society to reform. I mentioned a company, I'm not on the board of this company, I don't get any royalties. It's called Pay Active. Entrepreneur, Muslim entrepreneur from Pakistan in Silicon Valley. He said, look, the Bible says pay the wage of the laborer before the sun sets, for they are poor and in need of it. And the Prophet of Islam, he said, pay the wage of the laborer before their sweat dries. So why do we pay people on a 2-week cycle? If you're a business owner, I'm sorry, I just got to say what I got to say. He said, then why? Then why do we pay people on 2-week cycles? He didn't get good answers. And then on top of that, we milked them, he said, for $30 billion, upwards of $30 billion a year of auto loan liens, mortgages, mortgage loans, auto lien loans, payday loans. This is not what Islam or Christianity or any major religion was about. So he said, we should have a concept of earned wage access. The day you work, you get that funds. And so now Walmart and many other companies are on board. But why did it take a delay for that to happen? There are many other examples of this that are available in society for you and I to correct. So now, having said that, you want spirituality? This is where you get spirituality from. I'll give you something and we'll close tonight. There's a big spiritual realm. Ayatollah Shahabadi. Ayatollah Shahabadi was an arif, very spiritual mystic. He was the teacher of Sayyid Khomeini. They used to call him Arif Kamil. So he used to lead Jamaat in Tehran, in a congregation in Tehran. And this is before the revolution and all that time. And the people who used to come to his Jamaat were people who were merchants. They were businessmen. They were from tradesmen from the bazaar. And they used to come for Zohar or things of that nature. They would come for namaz. And he said, one day after Salah, he was speaking to them. He said, when will you increase your spirituality? When will you go towards your spiritual station? When will you elevate yourself? You know, there's different lenses in life, right? I wear pink glasses, I'll see a pink world. I wear green glasses, I'll see a green world. I wear blue lenses, I'll see a blue world. And so some people are looking at it from the net, you know, what's your gross income or your net worth. But other people, they're looking at it from the other lens, spiritually, for example. He said, when will you elevate yourselves? So he said, he gave a talk to the people, and one of the merchants said, Allah, what can we do? We're businessmen. We're working all day and every day. How are we going to raise ourselves spiritually? So he said, I'll tell you some things. If you implement it, you see the results yourself. He said, well, so what do you do? So now, you may think, read the Quran every single day, do this every day, do that every day, do all these things. He said, no. Just do 3 things, and you'll notice something. I said, what? Okay. He said, number 1, as much as you can do, as much as possible, rain or shine, try to read namaz, salah, awwal waqt, on time. As much as possible. If there's some circumstance that's prohibiting you, fine. And he said, as much as possible, try to do it with jamaat, if you can. Islam was a congregational religion. Qurada is salah is the exception, not the norm. That's why we say ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. And anything. And we use the plural form in Surah Fatiha. Anyways. And iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You alone do we worship and you alone do we ask for help. Now, he said, number 1, pray salah awwal waqt in jamaat as much as possible. Number 1. Number 2, he said, whoever comes to your shop, foreigner or local. You know, in Florida, we have these tourist traps. You know tourist traps? So he says, whoever, foreigner or local, treat them fairly and take profit which is enough. Don't price gouge on them. You know, sometimes you learn more Islam from non-Muslims. I'll give you a quick example. There was a hurricane coming in Florida, and some of the mu'mineen from North Carolina, they told me and my family, please come over, Sayyid. You have a good excuse and we would love to have you. So I made the trip, we drove. On the way back, we're driving back after the hurricane passes in Florida. We stop in a small town in South Carolina. And we're stopping to get fuel. And we see this lady who owns this gas station. She's, you know, salt of the earth, true, you know, American. She said, have you been to our town before? I said, no, first time, just getting some gas and moving on. He said, like, look, we're getting a lot of people here we normally don't. We know it's because of the hurricane. If you've never been to our town, know that there's 2 restaurants here. There's a pizza place here, Italian place here, and both of them you can try them out. I said, oh, thank you. He said, wait. There's actually a third, but I don't want to tell you about that one. I said, okay, why is that? And she said, the reason I don't want to tell you about that third one is because they're doing something wrong. I said, what? I said, she said, we're getting all these people passing through our small town that we never do, and they're doing something that they shouldn't do, which is they're raising their prices and they're price gouging when they shouldn't be doing that. I said, that's Islam. Your niyat, your fitrah tells you that there's something wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. And so this is where you may learn Islam more from what we perceive to be non-Muslims than from Muslims. You know, I sometimes think, alhamdulillah, we're in a church here, mashallah. Would we do the same for our brothers and sisters? I hope we do, maybe. The point that I'm driving at here is understand that Allah wanted Islam to be a universal religion that gave everyone this space. So now, coming back to this idea of Islam in its truest essence, in its truest form, is for you and I to implement within our ability whatever we are able to. So that taqdeer that Allah mentioned is where we are able to amplify our abilities. The Imams showed us this, the Ahlul Bayt showed us this, and essentially when it comes to Karbala, you see this. And there's a lot to say, I know I'm out of time, but just if you don't remember anything else, I'm really pressed because I have to lecture. In one sense, it's good. I lecture after iftar. But the problem is when the food is this good, it's really tough to lecture because I have to fight a food coma that people may have. So having said that, Islam and Karbala brings all of this together. When he says this concept of Shabbiri, if you want to understand true Islam, it's not only Imam Hussein, it's the companion. And I'll finish the rest another time, but this is what I want to leave you with today. How powerful is Karbala? And how powerful is practical applied Islam? And I'll leave it at this. Bujhaya ek diya shehne 72 ho gaye roshan. Allahu Akbar. You know the moment where Imam Hussein is telling people, look, you can leave if you want. I'll give you every excuse. You want to leave? Leave. Iqbal again in his Farsi Diwan. He says, Hadith ishq do bast kar bobalao damishq. Iqbal. Hadith ishq, the story of love, divine love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hadith ishq do bast kar bobalao damishq. Yake Hussein rakam kar digare Zainab. He says that one story of divine love was written by Hussein, the other was written by Zainab. You say Iqbal, he says, Surmay aankh, Hake Madina or Najaf. Iqbal, not Shia, huh? He's saying, you want to know what is the beautification and the ornament of my eyes? It's the dust of Medina and Najaf. So this understanding. So he says, another poet says, Bujhaya ek diya shehne 72 ho gaye roshan, andhera khud pareshan hai, bujha kya tha, jala kya hai. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. He says that the darkness is astonished. What was extinguished and what lit up? Each and every one has the flame of Aba Abdullah in you. Not my words. That there is a flame. There is in every heart for Aba Abdullah. And you should always keep that moving. That flame is what gives you life. Foster that, grow it, and live Karbala every day. Live Ali Muhammad every day. Live Islam every day. And you'll notice that these walls will be packed, whether it's happening here or there or otherwise. You won't need to fundraise because people will say, if we do it right, they will say, every aspect of blessing in my life is a cause due to this institution. And that's when Islam will flourish. And we pray that that day comes. Wa sallallahu ala rasulil kareem wa ala ahli bayt at-tayyibin at-tahirin. A final request to please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for your marhumin, for our marhumin. And for all those who do not have someone to recite Al-Fatiha for them. Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha ma'as salawat.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى تسعة المعصومين من ذريتك علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والزوجة بن الحسن أجر الله فرجه اللهم اغفر قبورنا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.